Welcome back to the deep dive. Today we are getting into something that is, pretty unusual for us.
Yeah, very unusual. It's a really fascinating intersection of ideas.
Right, because usually when we look at recovery literature or any kind of self-help philosophy, we tend to get one of two very distinct flavors.
Two extremes, really.
Exactly. It's either the boot camp approach, which is, very disciplined, very rigid, the whole break you down to build you up mentality.
Or it's the exact opposite, the spiritual flow approach.
Hmm.
Let go, be like water, find your zen.
Yeah. And it is incredibly rare that we see those two concepts in the same room, let alone the exact same
They
sentence.
feel like oil and water. I mean, one is entirely about control and structure, and the other is about releasing control completely.
But the documents we're exploring today don't just put them in the same room, they actually weld them together.
They do.
We are looking at a deep dive into a synthesis of the traditional 12 steps of Alcoholics Anonymous and the ancient Taoist concept of Wu Wei Gung Fu.
It's a heavy combination.
It really is. And the architect of the synthesis, the primary source we're relying on today, is a man named Paulie.
And Paulie is just a fascinating figure to anchor this entire discussion. He isn't writing from some detached theoretical standpoint in an ivory tower.
No, not at all.
He is a former U.S. Marine, a serious martial artist, and a man who has been sober since 1989.
Which is an incredibly long time to be testing these theories in the real world.
Exactly. So you have this really unique voice coming through the text. On one hand, you have the Marine perspective, identifying the enemy, the battle strategy, the rigid chain of command.
The boot camp stuff.
Right. And then on the other hand, you have the martial artist.
Right.
The focus on flow, the use of an opponent's energy, the concept of effortless action.
And that tension right there, that is exactly what we're going to unpack today.
That's the core of it.
The journey from the forced discipline of early sobriety, which feels very military, to the effortless action of emotional sobriety, which feels very Taoist.
That is the mission of this deep dive. We really need to understand how a person moves from white-knuckling their way through life, just forcing themselves not to drink, to a state where not drinking is as natural as breathing.
And to get there, we have to unpack Paulie's very specific and honestly sometimes terrifying definitions of the steps.
Terrifying is a good word for it. He does not pull his punches.
No, he doesn't. We're going to talk about the concept of drink time. We're going to explore what Wu Wei actually means. But I think we need to start right at the foundation.
Definitions.
Yes, because in most recovery circles, or even just in general therapy, acceptance is the golden word.
Oh, absolutely. Acceptance is the answer to all my problems,
Right.
right? That's the cliche.
Right. But Paulie basically stops us at the door and says, wait a minute, you are using that word wrong.
He is very meticulous about language.
He is. He breaks down this idea of giving into three completely distinct categories: acceptance, compliance, and concede.
And this distinction is the foundation of his entire philosophy. If you get this wrong at the start, the rest of the steps just do not work.
So let's break them down.
Okay, so Paulie defines acceptance very specifically as taking something offered. It's a transaction. It's contractual.
Like saying, I accept this job offer.
Exactly. Or, I accept the terms of service on this app. It implies that you have reviewed the situation, you agree with it, and you are willingly and happily entering into it. It is a positive, active choice.
Okay, so that's acceptance. Then the next one is compliance.
Compliance is submitting to standards. It's yielding to the will of others.
So less enthusiastic.
Much less. In a military context, you comply with orders. In a rehab context, you comply with the house rules. You make your bed, you go to the group meetings, you take your medication.
But the key here is that you can comply without actually accepting anything.
Precisely. You can do exactly what you're told while secretly hating every single minute of it. You are physically present, but mentally you are plotting a rebellion.
You're just waiting for the clock to run out. Compliance keeps you out of trouble, but it doesn't fundamentally change who you are.
Right. And then we have the third term. And this is the one Paulie says is absolutely mandatory for step one. Concede.
Concede. I mean, it just sounds like losing.
It is losing. That's the point. Paulie defines concede as acknowledging defeat. It is surrendering to physical control, and almost always grudgingly.
So it's not a happy realization?
Not at all. Think about a wrestler or an MMA fighter. When you are caught in a chokehold and your vision starts to blur and go black, you tap out.
You aren't accepting the chokehold.
No, you aren't saying, this is a great chokehold, I agree with it, and you aren't complying with it like a rule.
Yeah.
You are conceding that the other guy has won. He has physical control over you.
And if you don't tap out,
You go unconscious. Or you die. And Paulie argues that step one is not some spiritual handshake where you calmly say, I accept I am an alcoholic.
This is a physical tap out.
It's realizing I have fought this thing with everything I have, and I have been beaten.
That completely reframes the starting point. It's not a negotiation with yourself, it's an admission of total defeat.
And that leads us directly into the first major section of his work, which is the diagnosis. He breaks the first three steps down into a triad.
The physical, the mental, and the spiritual.
Exactly. And he is incredibly adamant that step one, we admitted we were powerless over alcohol, is only about the physical problem.
Wait, only physical? Because usually people roll the mental obsession into step one as well.
They do, but Paulie separates them for a very tactical reason. He calls step one the physical allergy.
Right, leaning on the doctor's opinion from the big book.
Yes. The idea that the alcoholic body is physically, biologically distinct from the non-alcoholic body.
Like having an allergy to strawberries or peanuts.
Sort of, but with a really nasty twist, because if you have a peanut allergy and you eat a peanut, your throat closes up, you go into anaphylactic shock, and you generally avoid eating peanuts ever again.
Your body rejects it.
Right. But the alcoholic allergy is an abnormal reaction. When you put alcohol into that specific system, it triggers a physical craving for more.
So the allergy isn't breaking out in hives, the allergy is the craving itself.
Exactly. It's a biophysical reaction. You ingest a chemical, and the body literally screams, more.
So at that point, it's not a lack of willpower.
Willpower is completely irrelevant once the chemical is in the body. You are being driven. Paulie describes the cycle so clearly. You ingest, you are forced by your body to take more, you eventually pass out or get locked up, you cease for a while.
And then you repeat it.
Despite all the consequences.
He uses a phrase here that I found really grim, but I guess it's necessary. Suffer to get well.
Suffer to get well. It goes right back to that idea of conceding. You have to hit the wall hard enough to tap out.
You have to experience the physical consequences of that allergy.
Yes, to realize you cannot win. If you keep getting bailed out, if you don't actually suffer the consequences, you never concede. You just convince yourself you had a run of bad luck.
And speaking of bad luck versus a permanent condition, Paulie does this deep dive into the word insidious. And I love a good etymology lesson, but this one actually gave me chills.
It's straight out of a horror movie.
It really is. Insidious comes from the Latin word insider,
which translates to sit on or to lie in wait.
To lie in wait. That is so creepy.
Think about a predator in the tall grass. A lion doesn't chase you around all day. It waits.
It waits for you to be tired.
Or happy, or distracted, or vulnerable. Paulie wants you to understand that this disease isn't just a bad habit you can break with a New Year's resolution.
It is a predator lying in wait in your own biology.
Exactly. So if the problem is a physical allergy that is lying in wait, what do you think the solution is in step one?
Medically speaking.
There isn't one. That's the kicker. Step one is purely the diagnosis. It is just the admission of the phrase, I can't.
There is no solution in step one.
None. The simplistic form Paulie gives for this step is just put the plug in the jug.
Which sounds almost insultingly simple.
It is crude, but it is literally the only physical response you can have to a physical allergy. Abstinence. You just don't put it in your body.
And he emphasizes heavily that this has to be self-diagnosed.
It has to be. A judge can order you to stop. A spouse can beg you to stop. But until you look at your own track record and admit, I am chronic, nothing is going to change.
And chronic in this context means?
It means permanent. It means fatal. He lists the alternatives for the chronic type, and it's bleak. Jails, institutions, and death.
He doesn't view those as scare tactics, though.
Yeah, not at all. To him, those are just the logistical, statistical outcomes of untreated alcoholism. It's just math.
Okay, so step one is the body, the physical problem. I can't. Now we move to step two, which he labels he can. This is where we finally deal with the mind.
Right. Because logic dictates that if alcohol ruins your life, which you admitted in step one, why on earth would you ever take another drink?
Right. It makes no sense.
That is where the mental twist comes in.
The insanity.
Paulie defines insanity incredibly simply here. It is the mind convincing the alcoholic this time it will be different, or it's all right to use.
Despite all the evidence from step one staring them in the face.
Exactly. So step one is knowing, if I drink, I die. Step two is your brain whispering, hey, let's have a drink.
That is the definition of a broken instrument.
You cannot trust your own thinking. Your mind is lying to you. So if your mind is broken, you need a new mind. Or at least you need to rely on a mind that isn't yours.
Which is where the concept of a power greater than yourself comes in.
Yes.
And this is where a lot of people just completely check out. They hear power greater than yourself and they immediately think, okay, here comes the religion.
But Paulie has a very pragmatic, almost mechanical take on this.
He really does. He defines the simplistic form of step 2 as drop all opinions.
Drop all opinions. Think about that. What is the main thing that blocks us from learning new ideas?
Prejudice.
And Paulie defines prejudice as opinion without knowledge. We walk around thinking we know exactly how the universe works. We think we know that we don't need any help.
So step 2 is really just saying, maybe I don't know everything.
That's it. It's creating an opening. And he addresses the agnostic and the atheist directly here, too.
Yes, and he actually defends them in a way. He breaks down the actual meanings of the words. An agnostic is someone who says, I don't know. An atheist is someone who doubts.
And Paulie says those are not barriers to recovery. Those are actually incredibly honest starting points.
Because they've dropped the opinion.
Exactly. Saying I don't know is a fantastic place to start looking for a power greater than yourself. It is much, much better than the arrogant believer who secretly thinks he is God.
That makes so much sense. So we have the physical, which is I can't. The mental, which is he can. And now we hit step 3, the spiritual malady, which he summarizes as, I think I'll let him.
This is the decision phase. You have conceded the physical defeat. You have admitted your mind is a liar. Now, you have to make a decision to turn your will and your life over to the care of God as you understand him.
And to keep things from getting too floaty, Paulie defines will and life very specifically.
Brings it right down to earth. Will is your thoughts. Life is your actions.
So turning over your will and your life just means turning over your thinking and your doing?
It's that simple.
Yeah?
And here we run into that famous military paradox again, surrender to win.
Right, because normally in war, if you surrender, you become a prisoner of war.
You lose your freedom. But in recovery, Paulie says you surrender in order to join the winning team. You finally stop fighting the universe. You resign as the general manager of the world.
He has a line here that I think just perfectly sums up the entire spiritual problem. The only thing I have to know is that there's a GUOD and it's not Emmy.
That is the spiritual malady in a nutshell. We really think we are the directors of the play. We think if we can just arrange the lights and the scenery and tell all the other actors exactly what to say, the show will be a hit.
And we'll be happy.
Right. But it never works. Step 3 is officially firing yourself as the director.
And he sets up a really interesting causal link here. He says, if I change what I do, what I think will change on its own.
This is a crucial point for the listener to grasp. We so often try to think our way into better acting.
Like sitting on the couch, analyzing our problems, hoping for some massive epiphany that will make us get up and fix our lives.
And Paulie says, no, that's backward. Move your feet, change your actions. The thoughts will eventually catch up and follow.
Which is the absolute perfect segue into section 2 of his framework, the action phase, steps 4 through 9. Because you can decide to turn your life over all day long, but if you don't actually do anything, it's just a wish.
Exactly. Steps 1, 2, and 3 are the diagnosis and the decision to operate. Steps 4 through 9 are the actual surgery.
And it starts with step 4. Review my life on paper.
Or, as he calls it, taking the medicine.
This is where that Marine discipline really kicks into high gear. You have to literally sit down and write. And Paulie focuses incredibly heavily on resentment.
He traces it back to the Latin again. Sentire means to feel. Re means again. So resentment is re-feeling an old injury.
It's picking the scab over and over.
It's drinking poison and hoping the other person dies. Paulie describes it as being forced to accept something highly annoying, and because we physically can't accept it, we just burn with anger.
You have to make these lists. Resentments, fears, sex conduct. Honestly, to an outsider, this just looks like wallowing. It looks like digging up the past just to make yourself feel terrible.
And that is exactly the danger if you do it wrong. But Paulie is crystal clear on the objective. The goal is to find causes and conditions.
We aren't making a list of what they did to us.
No, we're looking for the common denominator in all of our disasters.
Which is us.
Which is us. We are hunting for our own selfishness, our dishonesty, our self-seeking behaviors, and our fear. We are looking for the structural flaws in our own architecture.
Because he warns, if I keep doing what I have been doing, I'll keep getting what I have been getting.
Step 4 is the only way to identify what it is you have actually been doing all these years.
So you write the monster down on paper. And then comes step 5, reveal myself. You have to share this incredibly embarrassing list with God, yourself, and another human being.
And this brings us to one of my absolute favorite Paulieisms in the whole text. He says the fundamental purpose of step 5 is losing the face to save the ass.
That is just so blunt. I love it.
It's brilliant because it cuts right through the spiritual jargon. Face is your ego. It's the mask you wear. It's the image you project so people think you're a tough guy or a smart guy or a totally put-together person.
And the ass is your actual life, your literal survival.
Paulie's saying you have to sacrifice your precious ego to save your life. You have to sit across from another human being and let them see exactly who you really are, warts and all.
Which has to be terrifying, but also that is the beginning of true humility.
And immense relief. The sheer relief of no longer having to hide.
Now, this is where the major pivot in his philosophy happens. We've done the heavy lifting of the inventory. Now we move to steps 6 and 7. And Paulie describes this as the shift toward emotional sobriety.
Yes, this is exactly where the Taoist concept of Wu Wei starts to bleed into the military discipline. Up until now, it has been forcing. It's been boot camp.
But step 6 says we're entirely ready to have God remove all these defects of character.
Notice the phrasing. It does not say, we worked really hard to remove them ourselves.
Right. It says, have God remove them.
It is cooperative. Paulie's phrase is, God operates, I cooperate. Step 6 is purely about willingness. It's about the die-to-live concept.
Meaning the old man has to die.
The old man, the one fueled by those resentments and fears from step 4, has to die so the new man can live.
And then step 7 is, humbly asked him to remove our shortcomings. Paulie has this really beautiful, very distinct definition of humility here. I think people so often confuse humility with humiliation.
Oh, constantly. They think humility means walking around, staring at your shoes, telling everyone you're a piece of dirt.
Right, just constant self-deprecation.
Paulie says absolutely not. He defines humility as a realization of smallness without loss of respect.
Without loss of respect. That's powerful.
It means you realize you are just one tiny, small part of a vast universe. You are not God, but you are still a vital part of it. You are neither arrogant nor ashamed.
You're just right-sized.
Exactly. And as he puts it, humility never needs an audience.
It's not a performance. You aren't bragging about how humble you are.
No. And this leads directly to behavior modification. We cannot think our way into right action. We must act our way into right thinking. Step 6 is learning the new behavior, and step 7 is practicing it.
Which brings us to the final part of this cleanup phase. Steps 8 and 9. Restitution. Correcting the wrongs.
Step 8 is making the list of all the people we harmed. But Paulie brings a real philosophical depth to this step. He says step 8 is ultimately about identification.
Identification with the people we hurt.
Yes. When you truly identify with someone, you realize they are fundamentally human, just like you. They have fears. They have insecurities, just like you.
And when you see that, the anger kind of dissolves.
He says you remove the battleground. You literally cannot fight someone you completely identify with. You realize that hurting them was actually just a manifestation of hurting yourself.
And this leads into his take on forgiveness, which really stopped me in my tracks when I read it. He says, forgiveness is not to be given, it is to be received.
It is a total reversal of how we normally use that word. Usually we say, I forgive you, which sounds very benevolent, but it can actually be incredibly arrogant.
Right, because it puts you in the position of the judge, handing down a pardon from on high. I, the righteous one, absolve you, the sinner.
Exactly. And Paulie says, no, that is God's job. Our job is simply to clear away our own resentment, to clear the channel within ourselves so that we can receive the state of forgiveness.
So forgiveness is like an atmosphere you enter into, not a coin you hand out to someone else.
It is an internal shift, completely devoid of ego.
And then step 9 is the actual amends, direct and indirect. And here, Paulie goes right back to being a practical Marine. He heavily emphasizes prudence.
Prudence is key.
Yeah.
We have that great line, they don't want my money, they want their money.
That made me laugh out loud.
But it's so true. Don't go to someone you stole from and subject them to a long, tearful, dramatic speech about your spiritual awakening.
Just hand them the cash.
Just pay them back. Respect their time. Respect their dignity. Step 9 is about restoring balance to the universe, not making yourself feel warm and fuzzy.
Okay, so we have diagnosed the physical and mental problem. We have cleaned house and made amends. Now we finally reach the part of the deep dive that really sets Paulie's work apart from anything else. Section 3, the philosophy of Wu Wei Gung Fu.
This is the grand synthesis. We survived boot camp, now we enter the dojo.
Let's clearly define these terms first, because they sound very exotic, but the actual meanings are incredibly practical. Let's start with Wu Wei.
Wu Wei literally translates from Chinese as non-forcing or effortless action. Now, Westerners almost always misinterpret this as doing nothing, or just pure laziness.
Just lying on the couch, letting life happen.
Right, which is not it at all. It means acting without inner resistance. It means moving with the natural grain of reality instead of constantly fighting against it.
The analogy I always hear is floating down a river instead of trying to swim upstream. You are still moving. In fact, you're moving much faster, but you aren't struggling.
That's a perfect analogy. And then the second part, Gung Fu, or Kung Fu, as most people know it, simply means skill developed through patient practice over time.
So it's not just punching and kicking.
Not at all. You can have Gung Fu in cooking, you can have Gung Fu in playing the piano.
So Wu Wei Gung Fu together means the practice skill of effortless action.
Correct. And Paulie applies this directly to the timeline of recovery. He says there are two distinct phases. Phase 1 is early sobriety. This is the forcing phase.
This is where you absolutely need the Marine.
Yes. You have a deadly physical allergy and a raging mental obsession. You cannot flow your way out of a burning building. You have to run.
You need structure.
You have to use raw discipline. You have to put the plug in the jug. You have to force yourself to go to meetings when you don't want to. You have to suffer to get well. It is a daily, exhausting struggle against your own impulses.
But the reality is you can't stay in boot camp forever. You will eventually burn out.
And that is exactly why so many people relapse at 5 years or 10 years or 20 years. They just get tired of the fight. Paulie says the entire goal of the steps is to transition to phase 2, which is later sobriety, or the flow state.
This is emotional sobriety.
This is Wu Wei.
This is where steps 6 and 7, the removal of those character defects, finally pay off. You aren't fighting the urge to drink anymore because the urge has been removed. You are now just navigating life.
And he gives some really fantastic practical examples of what this shift looks like in daily life. Take conversation, for instance.
Oh, I related to this one so much. The forcing way of having a conversation.
The forcing way is what almost all of us do. While you are talking, I am not really listening. I am planning my reply. I am looking for a gap in your defense.
You're trying to win the point.
I am physically tight. I am anxious. I am forcing the interaction.
And the Wu Wei way.
The Wu Wei way is listening fully. It's emptying the mind. When you stop speaking, I simply respond with whatever comes naturally in that moment. I trust that the right words will be there. There is no inner argument.
He also applies it to stress responses. The forcing way is tightening the shoulders, grinding the teeth, mentally screaming no at the situation.
And the Wu Wei way is pausing, breathing, accepting the situation exactly as it is, and asking one simple question. What is the next natural step?
He has a carrying phrase for this, a kind of mantra to use in daily life. Flow, don't push.
Flow, don't push. It sounds so simple and peaceful, but try actually doing it when you're late for work and stuck in dead-stop traffic.
It's incredibly hard.
That is the practice. That is the Gung Fu. The instruction is, when tension appears, pause. Identify the resistance within yourself, drop it, and just do the next necessary thing.
But it seems to me like this is only really possible if you have done the grueling work of the first 9 steps.
Absolutely.
Huh?
You cannot flow if you are still full of toxic resentments from step 4. You cannot flow if you are actively lying to people and hiding in step 9.
You have to clear the debris out of the river first.
You have to clean the channel before the water can flow through it freely. Wu Wei is the reward for doing the work of the steps.
So if Wu Wei is the maintenance philosophy, how do we actually structure that maintenance day to day? That brings us to section 4, maintenance in reality. Steps 10, 11, and the really terrifying concept of drink time.
Let's start with step 10. Continue to take personal inventory. And when we are wrong, promptly admit it. Paulie points out a tiny word in there that changes the entire meaning. It says when we were wrong, not if.
It assumes we will be wrong.
It gives us full permission to be human. We are going to make mistakes. We are going to lose our temper. Step 10 isn't about maintaining some impossible perfection. It's about keeping in touch with myself.
It's a daily spot check.
Right, so that the resentments don't pile up and block the channel again.
Then we have step 11, the final transfer.
This is the evolution of a person's reliance. Paulie traces the path over time. In the very beginning, you rely entirely on your sponsor. They basically hold you up.
And you shift to relying on the group.
Then you rely on the philosophy of AA itself. But eventually, if you want to stay sober for decades, you have to transfer your ultimate reliance to the God of your understanding.
He has a great rhyme for this. Instead of pills and medication, I use prayer and meditation.
That is the ultimate swap. And he gives a warning here in step 11 that I think is just profound. He says, God did not save me from drowning to kill me on the beach.
Wow, that is such a powerful visual. You survived the deadly ocean of active alcoholism. Don't let the normal, everyday stress of life, the beach, be the thing that takes you out.
Trust that the exact same power that got you sober when you were hopeless can keep you happy in normal life.
But, and here is the massive but that Paulie hammers home, even if you are deeply spiritual, even if you are practicing wu-wei and flowing down the river, drink time will come.
This is Paulie's specific term for the inevitable, brutal storms of life. He asserts that drink time is not a maybe. It is an absolute certainty.
Because the disease is insidious. It's lying in wait.
Exactly.
So how does drink time actually show up? Is it just, seeing a beer commercial on TV and getting a craving?
No, it is much deeper and sneakier than that. It comes in disguises.
Yeah.
Obviously, it comes as major negative life events. A death in the family, a brutal divorce, losing a job.
The things that make you want to numb out.
Right. But, and this is crucial, it also comes as positive things. A massive promotion at work, a wedding, winning the lottery.
Really? Good things.
Anything that throws your emotional equilibrium significantly off balance creates an opening for that old man to whisper in your ear, hey, you know what would really celebrate this moment? Or you know what would settle your nerves right now?
So when drink time hits, when that immense pressure mounts, what is the actual strategy? Because repeating flow, don't push to yourself, might feel a bit too soft when your house is literally on fire.
The strategy is military. It's called double up.
Double up.
It is a tactical response to being overrun by the enemy. If the enemy attacks your position with battalion, you don't send out one scout to check it out. You send a whole division.
You meet force with overwhelming force.
Paulie says if you normally go to one meeting a week, you go to two. If you sponsor one person, you find a second person to sponsor. If you read one page of the book every morning, read two.
It's just sheer volume of recovery.
It is reinforcing the perimeter. Your normal flowing maintenance is perfectly fine for normal days. But when drink time hits, you are actively under attack. You need more armor. You need more connection.
And he promises that if you double the effort, drink time will pass.
It always passes. But you have to weather the storm.
It's another paradox, isn't it? In the exact moment when you are stressed and you just want to isolate and hide, which is what we all do, you have to force yourself to engage twice as much.
And that right there is the gung fu part. The skill is knowing when you can safely flow and knowing when you absolutely must double up and fight.
Which leads us nicely into Section 5, the bedevilments and the lineage. Paulie references the bedevilments from page 52 of the Big Book.
He uses this list as a diagnostic tool for emotional sobriety. The bedevilments are a list of internal symptoms. We were having trouble with personal relationships. We couldn't control our emotional natures. We were prey to misery and depression. We were a little fear.
I mean, that sounds like a standard Tuesday for a lot of people in the modern world.
It really does. But Paulie's point is stark. He says, if you are completely sober, meaning you haven't had a drink in years, but you are experiencing these symptoms on a regular basis, you are untreated.
You are physically dry, but you aren't mentally well.
You are suffering from unmanageability. The alcohol is gone, but the spiritual malady is raging.
So you use that list to regularly check your own emotional sobriety.
Right. If I realize I'm suddenly full of fear, I need to look at my program, I need to work a step, I need to call someone, I might need to double up.
And finally, he touches on the lineage of this whole philosophy, the history, tracing it from Carl Jung to Roland H. to Ebby to Bill Wilson to Dr. Bob.
He traces that timeline very carefully, and he makes a point that is absolutely critical for keeping the ego in check. Lineage is not a credential.
You don't get a gold star just because you're a grand sponsor with someone famous in the program.
It is not about status at all. It is about responsibility. You are just one link in a very long chain. If you break your link, the message stops with you. You have a solemn duty to maintain the integrity of the practice and pass it on to the next person.
Which is step 12. Having had a spiritual awakening as the result of these steps, we tried to carry this message.
Paulie's summary of this is, I give it away to keep it. This is the engine that drives the entire machine. You literally cannot keep the gift of sobriety unless you are actively giving it away to someone else.
Paulie has a definition of a good man and a bad man that I absolutely love. I think it is the perfect summary of that Taoist influence on his recovery philosophy.
Oh, it's brilliant. What is a good man? A bad man's teacher. What is a bad man? A good man's work.
That just completely dissolves all human judgment, doesn't it?
It really does. If you look out and see a bad man, someone struggling, someone acting out, someone drowning in their ego, he isn't your enemy.
He isn't someone to look down on from your high horse.
No, he is your work. He is your literal opportunity to practice step 12 and keep your own sobriety.
And the good man isn't morally superior. He's just a teacher in that moment.
It levels the playing field completely.
Mhm.
We are all just students and teachers, sometimes switching roles on the exact same day.
As we wrap up this deep dive, Paulie includes a poem or a reflection called If. It is written from the perspective of the higher power, or perhaps the higher self. And after all this talk of boot camp and forcing, it is incredibly tender.
It is shocking how gentle it is. After all the talk of conceding defeat and battle strategies, he ends with pure, unconditional love. He writes, "If for one moment you knew how proud of you I am, you would be more gentle with yourself. You would be more patient."
It strikes right at the absolute heart of the shame that drives so much addiction.
We spend our entire lives beating ourselves up. We think that if we just whip ourselves harder, if we are just crueler to ourselves, we'll finally get better.
And Paulie is saying, no, be gentle, be patient. That is where the actual power is.
There's another line. If for one moment you knew how much healing you bring to others, your life would be so different.
It returns to the ultimate paradox of this whole journey. You come in thinking you are broken, you think you are a disaster. But because of that disaster, and specifically because of your recovery from it, you become a healer.
Your worst, most shameful past becomes your absolute greatest asset in helping a new person.
So we have covered the brutal diagnosis, the rigorous action, the philosophy of effortless flow, and the daily maintenance. What does this all actually mean for you, the listener, right now?
I think the final provocative thought here is really about the paradox of control in your own life. We live in a society that constantly tells us to hustle, to grind, to force our way to whatever success looks like.
And early recovery, or really the early stages of any difficult life change, often has to feel like that. You have to be the Marine for a while.
But if you stay the Marine forever, you become rigid.
And rigid things eventually break under pressure.
Paulie's incredible synthesis suggests that ultimate power actually comes from surrender. The more you force your life, the harder and more painful it becomes. But the more you surrender to the next natural step, the more you practice Wu Wei, the more powerful and effective your actions actually become.
So the challenge for you to mull over today is this. Identify where you are actively forcing things in your life right now. Are you fighting a conversation? Are you fighting an emotion? Are you just fighting reality itself?
Ask yourself honestly, am I accepting this? Am I just complying with it? Or do I need to concede defeat?
And if you are in a storm right now, if it is drink time for you, whatever that specific pressure looks like in your life, do not try to be a hero on your own.
Double up.
Reinforce the perimeter.
Connect with your people.
And then when the storm passes, flow, don't push.
I think we will leave it right there. Remember Paulie's final question, what is a good man? A bad man's teacher. What is a bad man? A good man's work. Thanks for diving deep with us.
See you next time.